Also, think about text only. There are still some folks that are going to only be able to receive it in text. Most of the email marketing programs do give you an option to see how it's going to look text only. And you can play with that so that it's not real ugly, so that at least they know. And you can also give them an option to click somewhere to see it visually on a separate site, whether it's your site or on the marketer's site. And you also want to consider mobile device. I think the figures that you have out there say that 80% of people will look at email newsletters or email marketing on a mobile device, like an iPhone or a BlackBerry. So you really need to consider how what you're sending is going to appear on those kind of devices, because if they don't recognize it, they don't understand what it is, they're just going to click delete and it'll be gone. Now in MailChimp, we have an option to look at what our messages are going to look like in all different kinds of programs. It will check Outlook, it will check, email providers I've never even heard of. And this is how something we sent out recently looked in an iPhone. So I knew instantly that people are going to know just what this is. And we actually got a really good response from this. So people were able to look at it, they were able to see it, and they were able to follow up and click on the link. And then you want to think about spam. You have to be real careful with the e-newsletter about the words that you use in the title, even some of the words that you use in the email newsletter itself. You have to be careful about using too many caps, about having fonts that are in bright red, fonts that are backlit in a color. All these things play into whether someone's email provider is going to read it as spam. And again, these email marketing companies will help you. There are devices where you can test whether it sounds too spammy. And I also found online a list of spam words. And some of these in the nonprofit world, you're not going to have to worry too much. There aren't too many times when we're seeing multi-level marketing in the nonprofit world. But you might be saying amazing. You might be saying, let's see, all natural. That might be something that what you're doing has to do with. So you just need to be cognizant of it and be aware that what you're thinking is a really good subject line for your email might not be. Now, in any format, you want to consider what happens above the fold. And when I was preparing kind of these notes, I wanted to have a regular newspaper with me because that's where the term above the fold comes from. If you have a regular newspaper and you have it folded, obviously above that fold is the first thing that you see. Of course, I realized in doing this that most newsletters, above the fold is fine because when you open it up, it's all above the fold. You're seeing the whole thing. But you do also have this space back here to think about because they're going to see that. This newsletter, which I showed you earlier, does a really nice job because here's all the mailing information, but they get started right in on the front page of the newsletter here. So there's no, geez, this is kind of boring, I'm not going to open it. You see it right away. But you also have to consider above the fold when you're doing e-newsletters. Here's the PRC newsletter. And you can see they've got their important information right above. They haven't done just one big whole picture, and you don't know what it's all about. They have a picture, but then they have a headline so you know what they're talking about right away. And they even get in another picture and some news all above the fold. So, they've done a nice job of showing you information that's going to entice you to keep reading. You want to make it easy to read. We've already talked about that. That not only includes the design and the use of fonts, that also includes the words that you use. You You want to make sure you're not using, if you're sending this to a general audience, that you're not using terms that are so unique to your industry that the general reader is not going to understand it, because that's going to turn them off right away. You want to avoid any kind of acronyms that aren't going to be really clear. In fact, I know typically the university doesn't use acronyms at all if they can avoid it. I even know with the PRC, we say PRC quite a lot, but I mean that can be easily confused with the Preservation Resource Center. Yeah. So what's an easy to understand acronym to you may not be to your readers. So you want to assume less knowledge than you think your readers have. You don't want to talk down to them, but you want to make it so that more than just high-level scientists can read it. You want to make sure that anyone from a stakeholder all the way up to the CEO of your nonprofit would understand. You want to avoid asking for money, but sometimes that's what you're doing. You're doing this newsletter so that you can generate more funds. So you probably can't avoid it completely, but you want to kind of ease into it. So rather than saying, we need $100 million for this, you want to really show them the good things that you're doing so that it makes them want to do that. So it's kind of a fine line to really tread there as to how are you going to do that. Also, if you're going to profile a donor and show that they have given that $100 million, make it really interesting. Make it not be about them giving that money. You want to make it be about how they were first benefited by the organization, and then their situation changed and they became really wealthy, and now they're giving back. Or you may want to show how they've been a volunteer for umpteen years, and now they're not just volunteering, that they're giving some funds. Now, everyone loves to have their picture in the paper, and your readers are going to be no different. They're going to want to see, if you have a big donor, they're going to want to see their face in the magazine or in the newsletter. But you want to try and avoid a lot of gripping grins, and that's where you're at a foundation benefit and everyone is shaking a hand and every single picture looks almost the same. Or it's just a bunch of headshots. Try and do a lot of variety in your pictures. Try and profile someone or get a lot of candid pictures. Anything that's going to make it more interesting, because the more interesting your newsletter is, the more likely they're going to pick it up or open that email or give you that $1 million. Proofread. This is not rocket science. Most of you are in school, before you turn in a paper, you got to make sure that you haven't made a grammatical error or some other kind of technical error that's going to get easily caught. The problem when you're working on a newsletter is it's easy to have a hard time seeing the forest for the trees. You're working on it so much that you don't even really see it anymore. So you don't see that you spell public health without the L. Really bad mistake. So you don't want to do this all alone. You want to make sure that you have a couple of other people that are also proofreading for you. And you don't want to change your style too often. It's easy to get excited. This month I'm going to do this, and this next month I'm going to do this. So you want to keep consistent in what you're doing. But by the same token, don't be afraid to change. If something is not working, your readers just are not responding to whatever it is you're doing, definitely make a change. Try and see what you can do differently. It could be something small, some kind of one design thing that next issue really captures people's attention. Oh, and then going back to being consistent. Make sure that if you say you're going to have a monthly newsletter, that you do put it out monthly. Oh, and have fun. because it's gonna show. If you enjoy putting your newsletter together, your readers are gonna feel that. So have enthusiasm for what you're doing, have enthusiasm for the different projects, have enthusiasm for putting it together, and if you don't have the skill to design it, find someone who can. In your organization, you may have someone who has done that kind of stuff, so don't feel that you have to do it all on your own. Now, I just wanted to kind of do a few examples. This is a newsletter. Sorry, that's the wrong text here. This is a newsletter that I get that I think does a good job. It's not really a non-profit per se. But what I like about it is they don't have too many links. You know, they do a lot of their text right in the email, so you don't have to go hunting for it. It's not just one line and then you have to go hunting for it. And this one's a little bit different than their normal one, but you know, it gives you different parts to look at, which is, you know, you don't want to just limit yourself to one thing. If you put a couple of different things in there, it's going to give one reader may be interested in the first topic, another in the second.
What do you think about the subject line, surprise, all white foods are anti-calories?
Well, let me ask you, what do you think?
I'm not sure that I would open up if I saw that subject because, I mean, if I was receiving regular emails from Nutrition Diva, maybe I would, but you know, if I signed up and I signed up a couple weeks ago and then I kind of forgot, or 2 weeks since I got the first one and I got that in my email and that was the subject, I don't know that I can really know.
You could have a definite point there. I can tell you she's doing a different color every day. She normally doesn't have a newsletter every day, but they're doing a food pyramid thing, so every day she's focusing on a different color food. I believe orange.
Oh, okay.
She did orange the day before this, so. And actually, I think actually the subject line is wrong. I think she had to say all white foods are not empty calories.
Yeah, because it
So-
sounds very negative. Is
It
that why
does.
you were thinking you wouldn't open it, because it sounds negative?
Well, it is, and you know, the surprise part too, it's sort of, that's
That's
spammy
spammy.
language.
Yeah, that's definitely spammy. That's actually a really good catch.
Right.
This is the ASPH Friday letter. I'm just kind of curious what y'all think about this one. Anyone have any feedback on this? Definitely kind of text heavy. The font is very small. You know, and their picture is real small. You can't, really see too much of what's going on in there. And all of this is links. I've actually had a problem with the ASPH Friday letter for a long time. I just don't think there's too much about it that really entices you to find out more, unless you know something. And it goes on forever. It's very, very long. So if your interesting thing is at the bottom, you're never going to see it. They just don't have, they're trying to do too much. They're trying to please everybody. And you can't really do that. You kind of want to run with your most important thing. I would rather see them do, 1 or 2 articles with a couple of links here. And then for more, you click and you go inside. I would have more of a tendency to click to go inside.
If you look at the Columbia study, 1 in 26 will develop epilepsy, and that's a pretty shocking statistic. I would put that at the top for sure, just because that's attention problem.
And they follow kind of the same format every time, so there's usually something, really self-serving on the top, and it's just not terribly creative at all. That said, we do submit things to them, and listings in it.